Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. So I'm Sarah. I'm the alumni coordinator here at Dog Tag. Before starting in the alumni coordinator position, I worked in the catering department for 2 years. So I've gotten to work with the majority of the alumni here in rotation, in the catering rotation specifically. I'm very excited to be in this new role. And then I'll also pass it over to Justin to introduce himself.
Hello all, my name is Justin Miller. I am the new Chicago program manager, so I'm here for moral support to help Sarah in any way she needs today.
Awesome. So then I'd like to open it up to the alumni. So I guess let's start with Steve.
Hey everyone, I'm Steve, and I'm a proud graduate of Dog Tag's fellowship. I was in cohort 12, and I'm really excited here to be here today to help recruit for cohort 15.
Awesome. Anne?
Hi, I'm Anne. I graduated from cohort 6, and I'm in Alexandria, Virginia. Happy to be here.
Cool. MK?
Hi everyone, my name is MK. I'm with C12 along with Steve, and I'm coming from New Hampshire.
Great. Elfie?
Hello everyone, my name is Sophie Cox and I am cohort 13 and just happy to be here.
Okay, and last but not least, Janae. Oops, you're mute. Okay, there we go.
Yes, so Janae Coleman, cohort 13 also. Hey, OP, and just glad to be here and help in any way that I can.
Awesome. So I guess we can follow like a similar formatting, and I want to ask the alumni, how we're going to start is I'm going to ask a few questions, and then we'll go over all of those, and then I'll open it up so anybody who is joining us can ask a question if they have any. So to start, I wanted to ask, I guess let's start with Steve again. What did you do right after the program, and what are you doing now? And I guess we can follow a format of like Steve, Anne, MK, Ofe, Janae.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So before I came to Dog Tag, I had spent almost a decade in the nonprofit sector, specifically serving military and veterans and families. And then I went to Dog Tag, and afterwards I went right back into working with nonprofits, just in new and exciting ways. And I am continuing to do that to this very day.
I was going through the medical board process. I medically retired from the Army after 14 years of service and have some pretty major league limiting conditions. And I started the fellowship with an aspiration of doing a beekeeping / biscuit baking business. Got into the bakery and discovered that I have nerve damage. I'm not able to regulate my body temperature, and a whole host of other issues, being on my feet a long time. I can't handle the heat, so I have to stay out of the kitchen. So the bakery really helped me come to terms with those limits, which was difficult. I flew helicopters for 6.5 years and did PSYOP for another, 5. So it was a pretty difficult thing for me to come to terms with. So what they did was help me shift my attention to what I could do, which is write and mentor and listen. So that's what I've continued to do. I've joined several local writing groups, both veteran and just general public. I write mainly for myself. I'm not published yet, but I do write prolifically, and I spend a lot of time mentoring people, both in this program and elsewhere. I mentor service members going through the medical board process, and through a whole host of other things through referrals. And I'm really happy to do that. I find a lot of joy in it. And I don't know that I would have embraced that as a post-retirement way of life had Dog Tag not given me the permission to do it and the space to discover it.
Sorry, was I next?
Yes.
Sorry, I got a headache. Okay, guys, MK. So before dog tags, I just retired from the Air Force about 7 months into it. So then after dog tag, kind of got the ball rolling. I pursuing my business management now. I graduate in the fall. And while I'm doing that, I went ahead and got a part-time job at Starbucks because my business venture, cafe truck in here in New Hampshire in the mountains. I'm a big hiker. So come March, I'm going to do the 8 Appalachian Trail, which it'll take me 6 to 7 months. And then after that, I'm going to go to a pastry art school. And then I'm supposed to launch my business come May 2024. In the meantime, my logo has been copyright registered. So I have 25 years of that. And I recently registered my business. So I'm LLC officially. So after Dark Tech, things got really the ball rolling. I think also staying in touch with my cohort. We still meet up once a week or so. Just their motivation and seeing and the information that gets passed on between the 15 of us. It's immense, especially one of ours is Jason. He's into a lot of things. So his support, his knowledge, buddy, just kept me going, and he kept me motivating. So that's what I'm hoping to launch by May 2024.
Okay. Hi, guys. So after cohort 13 ended, I took a little break off, spent some time with my family, got my house in order, and then hit the ground running, working on the website. I've seen the back end on the website. The website is not live yet, but we're working towards, creating content, writing. Dog Tag helped get my mission and vision clear, helped me get a business plan, and helped me really solidify each step that was needed. I'm partnered with MK as my mentor, and that was a huge blessing. And just everything that's happened was because of Dog Tag, like just getting all the steps in order and reestablishing a business, especially post a pandemic. A wedding business is a lot of work, but I'm excited, and Dog Tag really gave me the keys and the know-how to do so. I also made wonderful friendships with not only previous cohorts, but also cohort 13, which is, we're like a little family.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with Ophi on that last part. We are a family within the family. So it's actually good to see alumni and as well as a familiar face. So since the graduation back in May, I would say, I actually came into Dog Tag with a business, with an LLC, but it was under major construction, reconstruction, I would say. My background from the military is IT and operations, but when I was medically discharged, I stayed in that field as a contractor for a little bit, but I always had a passion for like fashion. So I wanted to expand upon that. And I teamed up with my mentor, who's still a mentor to this day. She and I did a lot of dressing for success and acing the interview classes from transitioning military members, because that is such a needed class. And I liked what she had already done. She had been doing that for years, partnering with the Department of Labor. But I wanted to approach it in a different way, having that personal experience as a veteran. And so I started to kind of walk into her footsteps. But through Dog Tag, I realized where I needed to pivot, because I didn't want to be a traditional just image consultant. I wanted to actually do research and actually help the community and help other folks see what the transition process is like from a veteran's or a veteran's spouse's or a caregiver's eyes. And fashion was just my conduit personally to do that, and the impacts of fashion when it comes to the military uniform transitioning to a civilian uniform, if you will. So since the program, I was already working with a nonprofit. We just finished, I actually helped finish writing or rewriting their grant for them, editing it. And so it's $1 million grant. And it's not in the field that I would like. They're doing more so for community health workers, but I'm actually getting the foundation of how a grant works. So I know I do my research, how it's supposed to come together. And I've also finished writing another chapter for a third book that I was featured in. about the Presidential Service Badge. That and I'm just using that as a way to tighten up my writing skills so that when I start my blog, it will make sense. And it's also a way of branding myself. So that's kind of what I have going on now.
Awesome. And you guys beat me to like 2 of my questions. And I know Janae mentioned the word pivot. So I'm going to jump down in my list of questions and actually ask everybody to talk about pivoting. So we talk a lot about pivoting in the fellowship. How has your experience as part of the fellowship program prepared you for unexpected challenges? Steve?
Yeah, so one of the really wonderful things about Dog Tag is they really, throughout that 5-month fellowship, they really focus a lot on self-care and learning how to regulate your emotions, trying to navigate some hardships. And like Sarah said, pivot is a huge focus, especially on the entrepreneurial side and on the entrepreneur classes. Sometimes the plan you have doesn't always work out. And so you have to be able to flex and adapt and find new ways to solve problems and disrupt industries. And so, yeah, all of the focus that they gave us on self-care and meditation and different types of arts was really wonderful and really help when those times come.
I think the fundamental thing for me in terms of coming to accept, changes that I didn't appreciate in my life was Dog Tag's real dedication to our intrinsic value. And that's something that I knew. I mean, I watched Mr. Rogers growing up, and I do believe and I know intrinsic value, but I think just through my discipline, through service, and I was hyper focused on productivity. And I think what I'm doing, what I'm accomplishing, and I was very dependent on achievement and on results and on proving my value or my contribution. And when my body started not cooperating at the level I was used to, and then essentially for quite some time decided not to cooperate at all, it was a really terrifying and how do you say, demoralizing position. And so Father Curry's story of, having been born without an arm and what he was able to accomplish in his life, and the fact that the bakery was built literally from nothing more than an idea and people who believed in it, to now, be unrolling a whole legacy of enabling and lifting people to achieve whatever they want to achieve. On my worst day, I think of that. And I think if all I can do today is write 1 page in my journal, that's good enough. And it might not be. One thing I guess I'll just share that I learned through my experience of Dog Tag is that there's a difference between having a plan and being part of a plan. And so, like, I had this plan. I mean, I was planning to retire at 20 years, if not 25 or 30. That didn't work out. Then I had this plan of a business plan when I went into Dog Tag. That didn't work out. And then I finally had to kind of realize, like, I'm part of a plan and I play a role in that plan that I may or may not feel is significant, but it is significant. And Dog Tag, through like Steve said, their focus on self-care, journaling, reflection, and an holistic integrative view was instrumental to that, and still is for me very much.
So for me, I was already at the beginning of my transition from the Air Force, so that's a pivot in itself. But while I was in the program, which I was thankful I was during the summer, well, I encountered personal challenges while I was in the program, and my fellow cohorts well, not but they did help me through that. So I was very thankful for that. And then since dog tag, just professionally, it's just helped me prepare for my next step. All this time, it's just been talks. Just like Annie had said, you talk about, what you want to do. And over the years, it's all I've been doing. And then come dog tag, that was referred to me last minute. And it's just now it's been moving quite fast for me, which is great. The information is definitely fantastic, because I would not know what my next step unless it was for dog tag or the previous cohorts or my current cohort. So that's been a big part of making this dream an actual reality, and that's a huge thing for me right now. So just the next step is just keep moving forward. I've met a lot of entrepreneurs along the way. So I was in DC this last week. I was going to join ChildCore, which is another entrepreneur that dog tag also know about. So I'm going to go back in October and help him in his journey and see how I can use his training, his network, and all that stuff and bring it to New Hampshire with my business venture. So.
MK, you had mentioned something about when you were in DC about another job corps. What was that? What was the name of it?
ChildCore. He's a food truck. It's called ChildCore.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was just kind of curious about that. I thought you said child. So, yeah.
So for me, with dog tag, again, like everyone, I had a lot of like different challenges. My grandmother passed away while we were in the middle of the cohort. Well, I think it was like a month and a half before ending the cohort. My grandmother passed away, and I had surgery to my right hand, and everybody was amazing. Everybody can, just continue to encourage me and continue to just like pray over me and just give me a lot of hope, and, just continue to say, hey, you can do it. This is, you're strong, you're a mom, you're a wife, you've done this so many times before, continue to move forward and just learn how to, again, self-care, I remember doing a session where we got the chance to talk to our alumni, and Steve told me, C's get degrees, and, make sure you take care of yourself, take care of your kids, take care of your husband, just, you have a lot on your plate, one thing at a time. Remember, C's get degrees. And it was the most hilarious thing ever. And I often go back and remember, like, I'm so glad I did it. There was a lot of times where I could have given up, I could have quit, and I'm glad that I did it. Sometimes it was, I think twice, my husband woke up to go to work and saw me. I had fallen asleep at the table because I was just like, no, I have to continue to do it. I refused to not spend time with my kids, not to change the routine as far as like not be there for my family or, offset some of those things. I did everything I normally would do as a wife and mother of 3 kids, 2 teenagers and a toddler. And I still got everything. I turned everything in. Sometimes it was just like last minute, sent it to Ashley at 4 a.m. and then jumped up and had a quick cup of coffee, showered, and was ready for class the next day. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. And I highly recommend it. Absolutely. It also taught me that in business and as a wedding planner, that's a lot of what you do, right? It's the event, the day of the event. The couple has no idea of what's going on behind the scenes. You make sure they have a stress-free, completely happy, wonderful memories. And behind the scenes, you're pivoting, you're making decisions, you're hoping for the best. you plan, you execute, and you continue to move forward, even with the challenges. So it was amazing that they really helped me through that. Also, Ashley taught us a lot about the imposter syndrome. And so that was also very important and very helpful to me.
Yeah, so for me, just that picking up that tail end of imposterism, it is real. It was least real for me. And so I think that was definitely one of the things that that dog tag helped to, you know, speak to while I was there, put it up front and center. This is what it is, but you don't have to succumb to that. You can change the way that you think. And so I think that one of the, in addition to learning that imposterism is just a thing, it's not me. Like, I don't have to claim that. I think what it also did, it definitely helped to connect me to my purpose, honestly. Because I had my business, I'd had it for a few years before, but I was just kind of spinning a hamster wheel. And I remember one of the first things that we had to do was bring a picture and talk about the picture. And it was that was the first pivotal moment for me, I would say, because my dad is actually really near and dear to my heart, and he passed back in 2018. And so the first picture I instinctively grabbed was a picture of my mom and dad. But then it just occurred to me like, oh, wow, because he would always tell me to write, you need to tell your story. And having that at the very beginning and almost like facing him, and then seeing that the whole theme of dog tag was finding your voice, learning your story, and then sharing your story, it just clicked. And like everybody knows that, you know, Ophi, you know, my thing, we laughed, we cried, we fussed, we cussed. I did all of that, and I asked for forgiveness, but we made it through it. And that was like the biggest thing for me, was connecting me to my purpose. And I actually learned a lot of emotional regulation, and I think I definitely matured a lot on the emotional side of the house. And so putting that feeling and that purpose back into why I'm doing what I'm doing, that's what dog tag definitely helped me to do. And that's how I've learned, and I've changed course to adapt accordingly.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. That was really great. Just to change gears a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about capstone. So the capstone, for those of you who don't know, is the final project of the fellowship, where fellows are required to create a business plan and pitch it to business leaders in the community. So if each of the alumni could talk about what the process was like and how you've used that experience, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so I'm still in the queue for number one, so I'll go. Building off your last question about pivoting, for me, the process of getting accepted to dog tag was a pivot in my life, really. And following that theme, I came into the fellowship with this intense pressure on myself to figure out my next grade chapter and figure it out right now. So my first probably 6 weeks in the program, I was very focused on trying to create a business in a way for me to bring in money for my family and my young child. And somewhere along the way, it all kind of came out, this dream that I had about 4 or 5 years ago when I moved down to Richmond, Virginia, to get into motorsports, but more specifically to help diversify motorsports and use it to empower young children. So through a lot of trial and error and a lot of mentorship with a lot of people in and around NASCAR and a few other racing leagues, I came up with the business plan to create my own motorsports team. And the focus of the team will actually be to get more Black and brown youth into the sport at a very low level. That's very, very cost effective to run the team, and to try to create a STEM program around it, where we're trying to push out the importance of the different fields of STEM and how those apply to the sport of racing, And hopefully by doing that, we'll kind of help create a tribe like Dog Tag did for me, help push education and strengthen futures and Black and brown employment in the STEM fields, and also get some checkered flags and have some fun. And I'm really excited. I think we'll probably start this thing up in the next few years. A lot of things are kind of falling in place for me as I go along the journey of starting to earn for my family, but also leaning heavily on the 10 years of nonprofit experience I have, and finding the passions that I had in there, and turning those into new ways to serve and to give back.
Well, like I explained, I had the idea of raising bees and doing the biscuit thing when I first came into Dog Tag, and that's what I kept with until, really amazingly, there's a guy from a previous cohort who has a farm, and we went out there for a day and I saw his bee hives, and I had a flare up of a heat problem. So I quickly, my plan dissolved. And then a colleague in my cohort had an idea and invited me to work on it with him. And I liked the idea. It was like a mobile book store. And I really liked his concept and his messaging. And so I agreed to work with him. And the way the capstone served me was, he was, I guess it was the first time really that I received really great compliments. Like we worked very well together. I did great work for him, developing his business concept, which he's since taken and ran with and has done great work out there. But it was the first time I really had to say no. Like I really appreciate your feedback in this project that we're doing here, but I'm not interested in pursuing it further. Like I don't want to be a I don't want to work on this full time, because with having limited resources, physical resources, I've had to get very particular about where I spend my time and attention. And so while I feel like we did a really great job in having in the capstone, we did a great presentation, and it's something that allowed him to work further on. I was really able to honor my own alignment and say, I'm always being told when I do work, when I am able to work, and I do great work. And, but that doesn't obligate me to working on something that I don't want to, put my time and attention towards when it's limited, if that makes sense. And that was a huge learning step for me, to actually be able to say thank you, but no, and wish someone well and cheer them on and everything. So yeah, it was good.
For me, luckily, 2 months before the start of C12, I had finished a 6 weeks Boots to Business revenue through Small Business Administration. And they just really give you an intro to forming or creating a business plan. So when I got to Dog Tag and they mentioned capstone, I had a little bit of an insight of what the capstone was going to be about. But the capstone itself was really more in-depth than what I got from the SBA. It really walked you through each step of the way, and I got a better understanding what each area I need to work on, or more need focus on, or that I'm okay with. So that process I really enjoyed. Although I pivoted 2 weeks prior to the final presentation because I had an epiphany on my business venture, but it was in a good way. It led me to where I am now. It's a living document. So I after Dog Tag, I set it down for a couple of months and I picked it back up just to see where I'm at, and it keeps me on track for sure. It keeps me accountable, And I do share with some of the people I know that could help me, and they read through it and they did give me good feedback. So I have Dog Tag to thank for that, because I think without their feedback and the information I received, it wouldn't be as good as it was when I wrote it way back when I did SBA. So I have a lot to thank for Dog Tag for that. And just along the way, I've also helped other people who's also looking into creating their business, but they don't because they don't have programs like Dog Tags available to them. So I've been able to help use my business plan to help them.
So my business, my capstone project was about my business, which is a wedding and event planning business. Like I said, the website is still under construction, but the Dog Tag helped me add a really great purpose to my business. So it's not only a business, but it also has the purpose of employing other veterans and veteran spouses as a way of like giving back to the community, but also continuing to give them that work experience and help them bring some income into their families. And the fact that they get to like move around, as you know, all military spouses know, you know, you've moved 11 times, 12 times sometimes within like 12, 13 years. And being able to give that in a way, like give it back to our military spouses and say like, hey, you could always come work with us. We can plan a wedding together. You can take a couple, you know, days that you're available to help me plan this wedding. I can employ you for as long as you're here. And when you're not, we'll do a destination wedding when you're stationed in San Diego or when you're stationed in Texas. Consider that as a way to give back. And Dog Tag helped me see that. That's something that, because it was so close, you know, our military family is my military family. We, you know, we all kind of are in this brotherhood together, in this family together. And Dog Tag helped me see you've had people to help grow your business and expand here all along. They've been right under you. They're a part of your family, your military family. And that was such a huge blessing. And as a wife, there's a great feeling in being able to work with other spouses, but also to bring a little bit of income or a lot of income, depending on, you know, your time and flexibility, into your home. And it keeps you relevant and it adds to your resume. This way you don't feel like after, you know, 20 years as a wife that just follows her husband around or her spouse around, or a husband that just follows the spouse around, then you don't feel like, oh my God, I've given everything and I've been home the whole time. But you have something, whether you're, you know, the male that's like helping us with like the logistics side of planning, or you're the female that prefers, you know, doing the design side of planning. It was just so amazing to be able to see that through my capstone, and Dog Tag helped me see like, hey, this could really work. It's a viable plan. These people are here. And again, it gives back, and it's like win-win, because it's planning, which I love doing. And it's my military family and helping them and employing them, which I love. And so that was wonderful to me. And it was such a blessing that Dog Tag gave me that and helped me see that through the development of my business plan and my capstone project. And once I shared that with everyone, when the day we had to present, they were all just like, yes, it works. It's definitely a great plan and it works. And we can see you doing that. And that just helped me continue to like work on it, because entrepreneurship is hard. And so on the days where I feel like, oh my goodness, like a roadblock, it really reminds me to like, okay, sit back and remember that day and realize that I can go forward from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that, yeah, the process of the capstone project, I think it's challenging to a certain extent, but I think it's also as challenging as what, at least for me, for what I made it. One thing I wish I would have done differently is actually kind of piece it together as I went along throughout the program, so that it wasn't such a shock at the end to like, oh crap, I've forgotten all of this. And the rest you get it done. But I produced some good work, so I guess something worked out with that. But But yeah, so the process itself, yes, it is challenging, but it's a very rewarding one. And so now I take it, and like I think MK said, or someone said, that it's a working document. And I see it also as an extension of me. And I've actually used it when because I was working with a nonprofit along with the program. And so, but I kind of stepped back temporarily. So when I re-engaged with that nonprofit, I actually took it and I presented it to them in a way. I kind of tweaked it a little bit, and they were all, and these are all PhD and doctoral level recipients, and so I had to face that imposterism because I'm the youngest one in the group. But it was well received. They gave great feedback, and it's just continuing to develop as I'm working with them. So it is worthwhile to. And it's also what I also learned. It's also okay to change it a little bit. Like if something doesn't work or something needs to change, it's okay to change it before the end of the program, or at least note it and speak to someone after. Because again, it's just like we're growing and changing, so can that document. So that's what I would say about that. Mhm.
That's awesome. And that was definitely well said about, I mean, going through the program, and also as you're growing, so can that document and so can your plan. Again, the beautiful pivot. So I know it's 2:41 and I want to leave time for people to ask questions, but I wanted to ask one last question. What do you wish you would have known beforehand, and what advice would you give to future fellows? I'll put it in the chat as well.
I definitely wish I knew a little bit more how heavily numbers focused a few of the classes would be, and how much help I would need to get up to speed. Of course, your first couple days, they use the term drinking from a fire hose, but you get a few different email accounts, a few different login accounts, and you're receiving information from different sources. And I did not pay attention like I should to the first few. And there were several videos that helped you kind of get up to speed on Excel and some of the accounting equations and formulas. So I would highly suggest that you take advantage of all of the pre-class material that they provide for you. Once we got into a couple of the classes, you started to realize how much they would set you up for success by providing all the things that you need to be prepared for these classes. And Georgetown is an incredible institution. Dog Tag is an incredible organization, and they use their technology really well to, like I said, to give you those chances to be as successful as possible. So take advantage of that, especially those videos, LinkedIn learning sessions, and rock it.
I think I mean, the advice that I wish that I had listened to, I'm sure it was given to me, but I was too stubborn to hear it, or, was just to relax and enjoy the process and trust the process. And, I was cohort 6, so it's been several years since I graduated the program, and I'm still constantly working on my ability to relax and to receive and to be and to follow inspiration. I think there's rare opportunities in life. I mean, there's not so many programs out there that will pay you to, a stipend to really research yourself, reflect, whether you're a service member, veteran yourself, or a caregiver or family member. There's such unique experiences that we've been exposed to because of life circumstances. And I think if we're able to investigate those through honest inquiry without presupposed assumptions or visions of what we should be doing or ought to be doing or what's expected, and just truly allow ourselves to just explore. And I was able to come around to that with a lot of help from the staff. And but I wish that I had been able to do it sooner and enjoyed the process more sooner. So yeah, that's my learning point.
I would piggyback with Anne on that. Just relax. For me, I was stressful in the beginning, so I had to just tell myself, just breathe and relax. It's all part of the process. It's a new thing, so you just gotta find your routine. And once you find that rhythm, all is good. As you know, Ophi and Journey. I think I talked to them during their session. So yeah, you'll find it and just get in the rhythm. And for me, my advice is I've always helped others, so it's really good in numbers and Excel. So I was typically the one that's giving N1 sessions with my other fellows, because they were freaking out about Excels and the formulas and just accounting in general, number wise. Luckily I was exposed to that and I was really good with numbers, so I didn't mind staying up midnight helping them one-on-one. So if you have skills that the others don't, just help it out.
So for me, what advice would I give future fellows would be enjoy the journey, be grateful. You can do this. Don't quit. Even when it gets really, really, really hard, don't quit, because it will feel like life before dog tag and then life after dog tag. It is that important. Don't quit. Even when it gets really hard and it's 4 a.m. and you have to turn your assignment into Ashley, don't quit. Don't quit. It's worth it. It's life-changing. Do it. Do it for yourself. Do it for your families. Do it for your spouses. Do it.
Yeah, I would definitely say I agree with all the above. And some things that I would personally suggest, first and foremost, just small things that I wish I would have done was learning how to meal prep prior to, just and kind of conserve my time in areas and in any pocket of time, or just kind of schedule a little bit better, kind of come up with a routine maybe just prior to the program and kind of see if that'll work for you and you can make adjustments accordingly. The other thing I would definitely say that I learned and I would suggest to future cohorts is that this is definitely not like, you're going back to school, but it's not school as usual. I was at first like, oh my gosh, well, why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? And then it clicked, because you're like a business owner, you got to figure it out. And so I definitely would recommend, having certain types of notebooks and pens and papers, just kind of ready, folders, have some kind of organizational plan ready to go. And again, you can always tweak as needed. 5-star was my best friend. Those old 5-star notebooks, I brought it back and shook it off and had my pencils and pens and highlighters, and it worked for me. And lastly, I would suggest it's okay to cry. It's okay not to know that it may not happen when you want it to happen, but just having the confidence and knowing that it will happen. And that if you need help, definitely say something. Go to Ashley or to Sarah or anybody, because nobody wants to see the other person fail. So adjustments can be made all along and along the way. But never, ever, ever feel like you're alone. Just ask for help, and it's okay.
I wanted to add something that just came to mind, and that is because I forget, you guys, depending on where you are, when I applied, it was cohort 6, and I don't remember how many applicants there were, but as dog tag has become more, out there and is gaining momentum, I think there's more applications and it can be more competitive to get in. But I would just encourage you to trust the timing, and don't get discouraged if for whatever reason you don't make a certain cohort. Like I got accepted in cohort 4, I was anticipating on getting out of the service. I was in the middle of a medical board process. Well, then it all fell apart. I had to appeal. I had to get a condition added. I went back to the program and they said, no problem, we'll put you in cohort 5. So I was going to start then. Well, another thing happened. I got sick and now I thought, oh, they're going to think I'm screwing around and not committed. And they said, nope, no problem. They didn't even make me reapply. They let me go in cohort 6. And I have since, everyone I talked to, you know, who's thinking about starting a business or not sure of what they want to do when they get out, I advocate for this program and encourage them to apply. And they're very particular about crafting the cohort because they want many different experiences, the caretaker, the family member, the service member. There's like a formula, a recipe, if you will, and there's all these ingredients that go into that recipe. And so, and there's also like a timing, a trajectory of where you are, that all the magic has to kind of come together. So I guess I would just say to not get discouraged if for whatever reason, you know, the timing doesn't work out or whatever, that just to really trust. And I've had many friends who got put on the wait list and now they're in the cohort or they're in the next cohort, or just really trust, you know, and don't get discouraged. Like Joni said, just, and don't ever give up. Ophi, you know, it's great advice. Just keep going. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, I can say as a staff member that all of the advice that everybody just shared, I think is like very important and significant, and really highlights what it's like to go through our program. Especially the binder thing. I'm back in school too, and I definitely pulled out my old 90s Lisa Frank binder to get myself organized. But since we have about 8 minutes left, I wanted to open it up for anybody who has a question to directly ask any alumni or just kind of ask a general question that any of our alumni can answer. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable saying it out loud, feel free to put it in the chat and I can read it aloud.
I have a question. This is Janetta McKinney.
Yeah, go ahead.
This question is for, is it Annie? Did I say the name right? Annie or Anne? Anne. Okay, perfect. So you mentioned, Anne, that they're about limited physical resources and trusting the process, and then learning intrinsic value. And those things really spoke to me because I'm another person who is performance oriented and driven. And my body is also refusing to cooperate with me. And I just came back from a very long deployment to Afghanistan. So I kind of just want, if you have a moment or want to expand on the intrinsic value part of your statement.
Well, welcome back. And I hope that you have a good reintegration. I think that really, so dog tag's ability to focus on, there's a grieving process that really has to happen in terms of accepting what the limitations are now, what I could do. It's almost, it was an identity crisis, and the fact that it used to be I could throw a 100-pound rucksack on my back and go. I mean, I did the Baton Death Memorial March twice, one in my category 2 years in a row. I mean, I was an endurance athlete, and all that changed when my medical stuff fell through, happened. And so, I mean, I had brain surgery, I've had multiple TBIs. There's just, and it can be difficult because I look healthy, I'm articulate, I know I'm eloquent, I have a lot of capabilities, but I do not have the endurance. Like after this, I'm going to take probably an 1.5 hour nap. And in meeting forums like this, sometimes I'll get intimidated because everybody is going to come out and talk about, you know, what they're accomplishing and what they're doing and what they're out there. And I get into that competitive comparison mindset. And the first couple times that we had a forum like this, Megan personally reached out to me and said, Anne, I should also say I'm in a little bit of a unique situation in the fact that I retired medically from the Army. I've got no dependents. I had no debt. So I don't have to do anything to feed myself, if that makes sense, or put a roof over my head. Which is a huge blessing on the one hand. Once I was able to accept, you know, I'm able to go volunteer. I'm able to mentor. And those are valuable things that really help and matter. If I'm able to get out of my head about, well, I'm not doing what I said I was going to do in starting a business, I'm not doing what I consider impressive or productive, or I'm not reaching my full potential. Once I get out of that mindset, I can say, well, what can I bring to the table? And no one here is judging me. No one is, and that's where really dog tag, there's 4 big objectives. And the thing I love about dog tag is they don't dictate to you what you should do or ought to do. They say, here's what you can explore and discover and what makes sense for you. So whether it's going back for education, entrepreneurship, emotional and physical health, which is kind of what I'm mainly focused on. And there's another E, I forget what it is, but employment. Yeah. So I think that surrendering to the process and just accepting that has been huge for me.
Thank you so much for that. I'm really grateful.
Yeah, I'm not part of a cohort, but I just want to reach out to Ann and say I'm very impressed with your testimony because your testimony is very similar to mine. A friend of mine is the one who turned me on to this dog tag. I'm not gonna lie to you, ladies and gentlemen. I had the slightest idea what this dealt with, what it consists of, or even how this could be applicable to me. But if my dear friend Georgina, who I know Miss Hearn knows who she is, she speaks very highly of this program. So if she speaks this highly of it, I know it's got to be a great program because she is not easily impressed. I'm a little kind of puzzled as far as like how this might fit into me, but hopefully with future Zoom meetings, we can get a better understanding. And I'll be keeping in touch with Steve as well. I really appreciate your number and get a better understanding of this and see. And again, Ann, I got to tell you, your testimony is it's outrageous. It's like so similar to mine. And I mean, you guys are all impressive, but it's just amazing how Ann's testimony is very similar to mine, that she felt that she was not living her potential, because God only knows I struggle in the same way. And I'm 51 years old, no wife, no kids. And so I'm not in a situation where financially I'm strapped, but I'm very career oriented. I cannot sit still. Idle feet and idle mind for me is poisonous. And so hopefully you guys can, tap into that and just help me to expand and just see what I'm really capable of doing.
I would say, to expand on Ann's point too, that just learning to give ourselves grace, because I know that a lot of us are sharing what we've been doing, but Lord, I can tell you there's been some weeks where literally I cannot do a thing, and I'm in the house, everything's closed, and I don't want to connect with anyone. So as you were speaking, I'm so glad you shared that, Ann, because that really touched a side of me. That grieving process is real. So thank you for that.
Caitlin, I thought I saw your hand go up a little bit ago. Do you want to ask a question?
It did. And yes, thank you. It's not very well formulated right now, but I guess I'm going back to nuts and bolts. I heard someone is in New Hampshire, and I take it that you all did this when it was totally a live program and no one was a Zoom participant. But as someone with a bad knee, DC traffic is not my friend. And I know I asked a month ago about parking, but just, I mean, what kind of surprises did you find sort of on the logistical side? Did that part, with a little bit of preparation, a little thinking it through, work for most people, or did anyone drop out? And this might be an Ashley or Sarah question, because they found that they just couldn't handle either the commute or some other aspect of it that I haven't even thought to worry about. It sounds great on so many levels, as the former, going to be a general, going to be an admiral kind of person who ended up finding herself washing out of a lot of things. And yeah, it's taken 20 years to kind of go, okay, I am a valuable human being. And maybe I am lucky because there's a dog wandering around here who comes to me for cookies and love, and there is a kid and some family members, but still it's taken a long time to adjust to that. Don't worry, a lot of us go through that. So anyway, maybe I'm lucky because a lot of that process is behind me, but I still feel like there's a future ahead of me. And I have to tell you, I've sort of had it with trying to work through the VA and say, really, I do qualify for VR&E, and could you help me figure out my future? I think it's time to go with something a little smaller, a little more innovative. But in the meantime, I don't want to take on more than is reasonable, having been one of those people who has been told 3 hours a day is really about all you should be doing. So I know that this is something that is pretty intense for a short period of time. I just hope it isn't all DC traffic that could wear me out.
Hi, Caitlin. So my name's Ashley. I am the program manager at Dog Tag, working with current fellows. I wasn't able to introduce myself at the beginning. I've been going back and forth between 2 different Zoom meetings at the same time, which is pros and cons of being virtual, right? I will say, so at this point, we don't know what the January cohort is going to look like. We thought the end was in sight, and we were like, yeah, in person in January. And now with variants and different things, we aren't sure what everything's going to look like. We're hoping to have some kind of in-person component. But really, it's just going to depend on what is best in terms of safety and health for staff and for the fellows. I will say, and I will let a few of the fellows speak to this as well, but I don't think we've ever had anybody drop out because of traffic.
Well, because of no, I know.
We've had people who have had unexpected health concerns pop up, or other things to where they weren't able to complete the program. But I think our graduation rate is 95 to 97%. Nice. And I think a couple of people have mentioned, we will work with you. So if there are things that happen, it's not like you're on your own and it's oh, well, she failed. There should, especially with the Georgetown classes, it should never get to a point where you're surprised and I'm surprised that something's happening. Between a communication between us, between the Georgetown faculty, we work with our fellows because our goal is to help, not to leave you out to dry. And so just wanted to pop in and say that, but then also open it up to our alumni if they have experience with the commuting and some of the logistics as well. But I think actually a lot of people here were mostly our virtual cohorts.
Really? Oh, I didn't catch that. Okay. I thought maybe just 13 and 14 had gotten hit with that.
So 11 is when we went, 11 was March of 2020. So cohort 11 was half virtual and half.
Okay. So pros and cons, I would think, to both ways of doing it. For me, that's not a huge issue. And I've actually gotten a lot better. I know that stop and go traffic is really, really difficult for me. But so far so good this year, and maybe we'll be virtual. So
for sure.
I can say we lost one out of our cohort. It was cohort 6, and so I had to do the commute from Walter Reed. I was living at Walter Reed, going through the medical board process, and I can't tell you how much she really had extenuating circumstances. She just wasn't able to because of issues with her husband. She was a giver and spouse. And but watching the staff, I mean, I watched the staff firsthand bend over backwards and try to make it work, and really so, and then in terms of commuting, our cohort did it all kinds of different ways. There were a lot of people who ended up carpooling and parking. I decided to take public transportation, so I would take the metro from Walter Reed to somewhere in the city and then get on the bus.
Okay.
And it would be a little bit taxing. I would typically take a nap in the classroom area.
Really? Okay.
During the time, during, you know, several times a week, I would have to do that because of fatigue. But it was certainly doable. And I would encourage you to go down, and if you haven't already, take a look at the bakery, maybe try it, go and do a reconnaissance of the route. And, you know, but I didn't find that to be, and I was nervous. I mean, my social worker and I worked through a plan, and I gave myself plenty of, you know, time. And I have days where I'm really limited, and I was able to get through it. So I don't think that it would be much of a barrier.
I keep telling myself it's 5 months and not 2 years or even a year, you know, and if I needed to take a break at the end before doing the real thing, I've done that before, but just crash and burn is not fun if you do it back to back. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, does anybody have any other questions? I know we're after 3.
I don't have a question. Again, this is Janetta McKinney. I do want to just say thank you for every one of the cohorts that decided to call in today and volunteer their time. I was on the fence about whether or not this would be something that I could do, but by your candidness and honesty about your own experiences, it definitely has confirmed for me that I'll finish my application. So thank you.
That's awesome. We love to hear that. And I will echo that and say thank you so much to everybody who joined, especially our alumni for volunteering their time, like Janetta said. I'll go ahead and stop recording.